What is up, everyone? I'm Jeff Lund, and this is the Mediocre Alaskan Podcast. The dust is kind of settled from last week's Wyoming trip. Well, the dust probably hasn't settled because it's so stinking windy down there on the prairie. But last week I was in Wyoming and hunted for elk, mule deer, and antelope. I only had the tag for doe antelope, but my girlfriend had an elk tag, archery, and a mule deer tag. So now that it's been a few days, I've been replaying so many parts of it in my head, and you have to be, I guess if you're me, you have to be haunted by certain images, and there's two images that really stick out in my mind from last week. And the first happened on Sunday morning of last week, so the last couple days of September. I flew down to Wyoming. My girlfriend picked me up from the airport in Denver, and we went right out to the spot where she wanted to hunt for elk. And that was Saturday night. So we hiked 7 miles Saturday. Didn't see anything, and so we were going to relocate. And as we were driving to the new spot, she spotted 2 cow elk just before dark. And so we continued up the road, and we camped pretty close to it. It was one of those spots that you don't look on a map on Google Earth and say, oh, that's where the elk are. Well, I wouldn't know where the heck they are anyway because I've never been on an elk hunt before. I did go on the Edelin Island one here in Alaska, but that's a whole different program. So anyway, so we camp, and that night I hear a bull elk bugle. And I'm sure that I'm dreaming because you go from Alaska, now you're down in Wyoming, and you've seen elk, and you're around elk, and you're on this elk hunt, and oh my gosh, is it going to happen? I thought it was going to be kind of a drive-through hunting. We weren't going to do anything really, really well. We're going to try for elk, then mule deer, then antelope, but I figured that the only one we'd really have a chance at getting was an antelope. And here we are camping right next to what could be a herd. I mean, this is crazy. And she's got her elk tag, and she's never killed anything bigger than a rabbit before, but she's got the bow, and she's practiced. And, are we going to get on an elk in the morning? So that night I was not sleeping at all, and I kept hearing these bugles. And I thought, there's no way. There's no way I'm really hearing that. This is a dream. And so I sat up just so I knew that I was conscious. And I sat up and I waited for it. And there was a lot of wind. But man, I stinking heard a bull elk bugle. And it was, people talk about how when you hear an elk bugle, how it just kind of gets in your spine. And I felt it a little bit, but I was in the tent, so it was a little bit different. I thought, man, if I am out in the woods and I hear that, that's going to be crazy. So we get up, have a little breakfast, and we head down to the spot where we saw the 2 cow elk the night before. And it's right at first light. We wanted to make sure that there was enough, because it's going to be a lot darker in the forest, and so we didn't want to get down there too early to where it may have been shooting light out in the open. But even though it was shooting light, you can't really see things in the forest. So legally, you can shoot, but it can be a dense spot of forest, and so we want to make sure we saw stuff, right? So anyway, we get down there, and we are right on the outside of this clearing, and when we stop, and we want to just look at the edge of this clearing and make sure we don't bump anything, and sure enough, man, there's 2 cow elk broadside. And I can see it. I can close my eyes and I can see these 2 elk. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's right now. It's right here. And they were 30 yards away. There were branches in the way. And so you've seen so many elk videos, right, on YouTube. And you've seen how this goes down. And what's going to happen is they're either going to spook or they're going to keep walking right into this beautiful clearing. There's a great shooting lane. And I just imagined Abby pulling back and then letting it fly, and then you got the first, and then just the shaking sort of response. But as it happened, the elk just took off, and shortly thereafter, heard the bugle again from the bull, And I thought, dude, it's on. It's on. We just saw 2 cow elk. We just heard the bull bugle. This is so on. I am neck deep in it. I figured it might be a pack, because Abby hasn't been elk hunting before, so we have accidentally stumbled upon maybe a herd. Like we're in it. We're in it. I'm trying to file back all the stuff that I have, or research, look back at all the stuff that I've ever learned or watched about elk hunting, and which is not much. You can watch it all you want, but unless you are out in the field, you don't really know how things really go, right? If you're just seeing clips of hunts, the highlights of it and some B-roll, that doesn't mean you really know anything. So we wandered around in the woods for hours that day, and we found some beds, and we found some rubs or scrapes. So I'm not sure which one is which. Up here we call them rubs. But then when I was talking to Jaden Bales from Backcountry Fuel Box, he said that the rubs are when you rub off the velvet, and then the scrapes are more during rut time, so that makes sense. But anyway, so we saw a lot of sign and indication that they were there. But after those 2 cow elk, we didn't see anything else. But amazing. I hadn't even been in Wyoming for 24 hours, and we'd already had a chance kind of at 2 cow elk, but Abby didn't have a shooting lane, so we nothing there. But so rest of Sunday, we hike around, and we head to Laramie, and kind of the big ticket for me. I was really excited about the mule deer hunt. Again, I had no expectations for the elk. I wasn't sure, that was just, we had a couple days to kill because the season didn't open until Tuesday for mule deer. And so the elk was just purely gravy, just purely extra, if we see something cool, but I really didn't expect that we'd have a chance to get that close to them. So I was really optimistic. Things had started well, and that elk thing just got into me, man. I have to do that again for sure. So Monday we went out and set up camp. So we were, I've been thinking about this for months, and you plan out, and we'd looked at the spot that we wanted to camp, and everything was dependent upon other people, because you can figure out where you want to camp, you can figure out where you want to go, but if there's other people there, that totally changes the program. And so how many programs do you have? Do you have, this is the A program, this is the B program if someone's here, and this is the C program if someone's here, and if they do this, then you have to do this, and you just worry about it so much, but you can't know those variables, and you just have to kind of show up and assess. So we had a plan, and we got out there Monday midday, and there were 2 camps set up. One was just a trailer. Another one was like a full-on, canvas tent, Cabela's commercial out there. And so it was near where we wanted to go. So we figured, well, we'll just go the other direction. And so that night we set up camp, and then we went in that north direction, and we were looking down in this little gulch, and there was some aspen trees down in there. And as we were glassing down into it, we saw 2 mule deer. It was after about 2 hours. So we just sat there and we kind of glassed aside. Didn't want to get up there the day before, and I didn't know if, you go up there and you look at everything that you want to look at, and if the mule deer are going to spook out, or the whitetails are going to spook out because you put your scent up there the night before the opener. So we were pretty cautious about getting too far back, and we just glassed this spot that was fairly close to camp, and it looked like it was good habitat. And sure enough, there were two does. And figured, hey man, there's got to be something around it, right? There's got to be some little buck that's overzealous that might be hanging on to these things too early. Again, I don't know. I've never been mule deer hunting before, so not really sure what the program is. But it seemed like good, so we went back to camp and had our plan for the morning. We're going to head up there and we're going to glass that. And went up there in the morning, didn't see the does, and then went up to this ridge and looked down the back side of it, and there were just tons of sign, but the sign was really old. And we were glassing 200 to 400 yards away, or Sometimes a little bit more, but there was a river, and we didn't really glass on the other side of that because we weren't going to cross the river. But didn't see anything all day. And Jaden, again, the guy from Backcountry Box, Backcountry Fuel Box, sorry. He texted and asked how things were going. I said, haven't seen anything. And so he said, find this specific terrain. And I'll bring up the text that he sent me, which was awesome to have that sort of insight, because then not knowing anything and not knowing what's going on. He said that you want to find pockets of waist-high bitter brush on east-northeast facing slopes, and plant your butts 1,000 to 1,500 yards away and glass your eyes out. You'll see deer. So that's when, and we met for coffee the next morning, Jade and I, and it was, once he said that, there's just the difference in the colors and the difference in the vegetation, and to that point, you're used to the Remy Warren mule deer hunting videos where they just pop out of everywhere, and of course you can be able to get close, and there's you can't not see mule deer that are massive, but there's this like sage-looking brush, or this brush that is like a teal color or like a sea foam type color. And then there's one that's like this nice green color. They look very similar. And until you kind of point out the difference, you think, oh man, that one's food, that one's not. And so we were in a spot that was kind of the not food thing. Outside that nice little bit of aspen, the aspen grove, we were in an area that didn't have the right sort of vegetation. So once he didn't point it out, I just, what does that other thing look like? And I was, dude, that green stuff is what we want. So we went to we looked on the map, and we relocated. So we picked up our camp, or packed it up, and then drove to a different area, and then hiked back in there where there was a bigger aspen grove. And on the side of the mountain was this more lush green looking vegetation that was what deer wanted to eat. And it was so revealing, when you're trying to figure stuff out, what's the right sort of vegetation. And what you see on videos is way different than when you experience things in real life. And so seeing the right type of vegetation and getting on the spot. So we hiked a couple miles into a new spot, and we sat on it, and man, it was beautiful looking. The aspen grove was larger. It had the right sort of brush on the side, and so we're just waiting for stuff to feed out. And it was the opener, and there was a ATV that we didn't think was supposed to be there because it was wilderness area, and there was a vehicle, but it may have been right on the edge of some private land. I'm not sure what the heck happened there, but so we weren't able to glass the entire section that we wanted to, so we were kind of confined to one area, but it was still good enough. We still expected something to come out, but nothing did. So that was Tuesday, the opener. We ended up doing 14, 15 miles hiking around on that day, and then also a ton of glassing. So like we were out from dark to dark, and we did most of the hiking back to the car in the dark after that. So, but a great day. It's just a new experience, and it was a lot of fun. It was sunny and it was warm. Which may have been why the deer weren't around, because it'd been unseasonably warm. So I guess the mule deer may have still been up a little bit and hadn't been pushed down more to that winter type range. But just great to see the new program, and it reminded me of those afternoons in the Alpine, and those mornings in the Alpine up here, where you're just sitting there and you're glassing and you're happy. There's no distraction, there's no rush. It was a lot of fun. It was relaxing, but you're still ready to go. You're looking for it. You're ready to make the move. So then we went out again for mule deer on Thursday, and new spot. But again, we were looking for the right type of vegetation on the hill facing the right direction, and there were a couple spots that just looked great. And so we sat on one and waited for pretty much all day, and then nothing came out except for a mule deer doe, And so no shots, no anything on the mule deer front. So then you start to get the end of the trip, and now it's Friday, and haven't really hunted much for antelope. And the trip's almost over. You have this encounter with the elk right off the bat, and you think this is going to be an absolutely insane week, and there's not going to be enough freezer space for the amount of meat that we're going to get. Right? You entertain that thought, then you think, wait, hold on a second here. All right, it's not going to work out totally perfectly. You got to kind of earn it a little bit here. So now all of a sudden it's Friday, and no elk and no mule deer and no antelope yet. We'd gone on a couple like morning for an hour type programs because Abby had class, we had stuff going on. So the antelope thing was absolutely crazy. It's in a hunter management area, so most of the land is private. So you've got houses and you've got cows. And I've never hunted in an area that has houses and cows. So the first antelope I saw, and another part of that, of course, is the terrain, because now we're in the prairie, and it's just flat. And the first antelope I made a move on, it's out there, and I range it. I get a good rest. I know it's going to be kind of a long shot, so I get a good rest, and I range it, and it's 250 yards. And I look through my scope, and man, that's a tiny little doe, but okay, well, we'll take it. And I shoot. Not even close. And the thing runs off, and I had ranged a little bump between the antelope and myself. So it was more like 400 yards. And I think, oh, gosh, I'm glad I didn't, take out its hoof or anything like that. So I discovered that happens often, not the hoof thing, but you're walking around, and if you lay down or sit down, you're trying to make a stalk, and if you're standing, you're good. But I'm not going to take a standing shot at something that's 200 yards away. So if you make a nice stalk to get close, there's going to be some little bump or some little ridge or some little bit of texture in what you otherwise think is totally flat.
After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
As you're coming up to these rises, if you're down in these little basin areas or these little washed areas and you're trying to make a stalk, you're going to come up and it's not going to be a clear shot. So there's the first one. The second one was right next to the road, antelope. And so I get out the car, and it's just madness to be driving up and down this road until you see, these groups of 11 does and a buck, or a lone buck, or 3 or 4 does and it's just, so you get out of the car and you get off the road and you got 30 feet to get out there, and then you're just trying to make it happen. It's so frenetic. So I see this one and it's close, and there's cows in the background. So I try to adjust my angle, and then there's like a house in the background, and it's way in the back. But, you start thinking about ballistics and how far are those houses in the back, and how far are those cows in the back. And, the ranchers don't want you to shoot their cows, which is obvious. And so you start thinking about all these other different variables. What if I don't touch bone, if the bullet passes all the way through the antelope, how much further is it going to go? Or if it does hit a bone, is it going to deflect? So all these things are in my head as I'm trying to figure out whether or not to shoot this antelope. And by the time I decide that it might be cleared, the thing takes off, of course. And it was kind of frustrating because, once I'd calmed down, I thought I could totally have taken that shot because, those cows are over a mile behind. And the cows that were, within a couple, 30 or so yards, some were, within 50. One of them was right in front. And then it moved out of the way. But it was just around. There's just the chaos that's happening around you. And you're thinking cows and you're thinking houses. Once it was over, I thought, well, I'm kind of glad I defaulted that way rather than just go out there and shoot at anything and then have to explain why I shot a cow, or do something wrong. So at that point, I thought it was good that I was considering these things. But then as the day progressed, I made a stalk on a group of about 11. And, as soon as I tried to rose up just enough to set up my pack to shoot off my pack, they took off. And then I made another stalk. I got to 108 yards of these two does. And it was a beautiful stalk, man. I went all the way around. There's this little washed area where during heavy rains it kind of carved out this spot that goes to the basin where the river is. And I went all the way around, came up this backside here, and then got close, and it was just the tops of their backs that was exposed. And I knew that they were going to step forward a little bit. I'd have the whole broadside shot, and they didn't. They just took off, and I thought, I'm not going to get any more of these opportunities. How many of these opportunities are you going to get? It's not that something wrong is happening every single time. And sometimes in hunts, you figure, not everything can go wrong indefinitely. At some point, you're going to get a break, right? But then I was thinking, I am getting these breaks by having these opportunities. So it's not that I'm not getting lucky. I'm getting lucky, and then I'm getting immediately not lucky. Or it was a weird, it's unlike any other hunting experience I've had. And I haven't been hunting for a long time, so it's not saying a whole lot. But I'm having opportunities, but they're not ideal. And so how, what's that threshold? Nothing is going to be perfect, right? Nothing is going to be totally ideal. So at what point do you have to, make a good play or make a good shot or make a something, anyway. So I'd figured that because this is private land and there was a bunch of permits that had been issued to people and the season had been going on for over 2 weeks, I guess the antelope were a little bit more or less trusting of the human presence, which makes total sense. But I figured because I was off the road and I was now making these stalks that things would be a little bit easier, a little bit better, at least to give myself an opportunity. So the final stalk that Abby and I were making was on a set of 3. We'd done about the same sort of stalk I'd done on the one and gotten to 108. And she had joined me after. She had some class on Fridays, so she came out and joined me afterwards. And we made a similar stalk in that same area as those one I saw at 108 yards. And got to about 250, and then they spooked and never shot. And then we see 3 more that are on the other side of this little wash area, and so we're working around to get to them. And then a stinking elk, a bull elk, out in the middle of the prairie here, runs them off. So we have houses that mess me up, that are in the back and that prevent me from taking a shot, and cows are in the way, and now a bull elk foils the plan. So that's essentially how it ended. The last image I have, the 3 images I have from the trip. One are those 2 elk right off the bat, those 2 cow elk at 30 yards, and then I have the sight of those 2 antelope does at 108 yards and just how close they are. And then the 3rd image I have is of the bull elk running off the antelope. fantastic images. If you look back and you think that, I didn't come home with any meat, that sucks. But people don't get to do those sort of things. Like it's an amazing, and I hate talking like this sometimes because it's this whole, oh, it's about the experience and it's great, oh, it doesn't matter that you didn't get any meat, because it matters. I went down there, I wanted to get meat, right? I wanted to be there for Abby's first kill. I wanted that for sure. And so the fact that it didn't happen, I'm a little bit not angry or frustrated, and I guess kind of disappointed, but you don't have ultimate say in this. This isn't something like you go to Disneyland and, oh man, we should have waited in line for that ride, and it was in our control. We could have waited in line and gone on that ride, but we didn't. Hunting isn't like that. It's not just a matter of making a decision and doing it. It's you make the decision, you try to do it, and you try to put yourself in a position to be successful. And if not, well, that's because you're dealing with an animal as the variable. It's not a line or tickets or something sold out or you didn't get there soon enough. It's not a choice like that. We should have eaten at this restaurant when we were there. It's way different than that. So the experience was awesome, and I cannot wait to do another elk hunt. But it's like a year away. So I am at the same time absolutely drooling about rut deer up here in Alaska, and then spring bear, and then I got to figure out a way that I can get an elk tag or be on another elk hunt next year. So it's crazy. And then mule deer. The mule deer I thought was going to be the most fun, but the elk part may have been the most fun, but they're so different. I like being in that dense woods and you're hearing the elk bugle. That's unlike anything, but also being up in those nice hills looking down and waiting for something to come out of those aspen groves. That's insane. And then making these stalks in this cactus laced prairie for antelope, it's crazy. The availability of those things is nuts, and it's so fun and so frenetic that you got all these things going on at once. But you feel the same thing about Alaska. But when you live here, it's a lot more relaxed because you have such a long season. And so you're overlapping of it's still fishing season while it's still bear season, while it's still deer season. You have all these things that you can do. And the entire year is like that. So different. Loved it. Great trip. Thanks a lot to Jaden Bales from Backcountry Fuel Box for all the insight and the help. We met for coffee on Wednesday and chatted for about an hour and a half about some mule deer hunting and kind of entrepreneurship and stuff. And so I really appreciate his help. Cody Rich is the guy who owns or who runs the Backcountry Fuel Box, and I was listening to his podcast. I've listened to it now more after I've been in Wyoming, which is too bad. I should have listened to some of those podcasts about elk before I went down there. But a great podcast there about it's the Rich Outdoors podcast. Great podcast there about elk and about mule deer and stuff like that. So looking forward to getting back down there at some point next year. Bought a preference point for deer, and hopefully I'll draw something. If not, then we'll try to get Abby's tags again next year and make something happen. But we'll call that episode 112. And make sure you check out the MediocreAlaskan.com for other content. Column in Juneau Empire and Caffeine and Kilos for other content. Do check out the Backcountry Fuel Box, man. I was doing the math on that, and it is cheaper if you live in Alaska to buy these, to buy the boxes. You get 14 products there, and if you go to the store, you're paying $2.50 for each bar, and if you add that up plus a meal, you get a meal in there too. And the meals that if you go and you buy a Mountain House meal at Tongass or whatever around here, you're paying $12. So to get this box for, I think it's $30 and $3 for shipping, man, it saves money. And then you get these bars and you get these jerky and you get all this other stuff. So it's a good alternative, and that's a non-paid advertisement, by the way. So. Well, thanks for listening, and we will catch you next time.